I am Reverend Irene Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to Generationally Speaking. Here at the table, we come and we discuss life issues, no matter what they might be. As we sit at the table with each generation, we all learn, we all grow, we all are inspired. Generationally Speaking.
So having all these connections, how did you manage then to become a part of the Million Man March?
Well, after I was moved from that and I moved to be president of the union, then I was dealing with the city on a lot of different issues, from contracts to whatever. So when the Million Man March came up, our union was the first union to endorse Marion Barry when he ran for mayor, when he ran for school board, when he was on the city council. Our union backed him. So I knew the mayor, I knew Marion, and he knew of my family because he comes out of SNCC.
Right.
And he'd been the first president of SNCC. And so there was a connection there. And the Million Man March was struggling to get off the ground. And so the way the mayor decided it would be helpful is that the mayor wanted to endorse the Million Man March. Mm-hmm. And so the mayor called a press conference with Ben Chavis, who was the chairman, and he invited all the union presidents, union, and the DC being basically a black union. All the presidents were mostly black except for the firemen and the policemen. So he had all of us on stage, and when I got up to speak, I said, my name is Chuck Hicks. I'm the president of ASTME Council 20 and our local 1808. And I come from a small town named Bogalusa, Louisiana, which is where the Deacons of Defense and Justice come from. Mm-hmm. And I gave my speech about why the Million Man March was important. And when I finished the speech, then Dr. Chavis came up to me. He said, Chuck, you from Bogalusa? He said, I know about Bogalusa. I know about the Deacons. I want you to be on the executive committee of the Million Man March. And I want you to speak at the Million Man March. And so I sat on the executive board with Minister Farrakhan, with all the big shots. And I was the coordinator for the Million Man March for labor. And one of the interesting things is that none of the major unions, the white unions, endorsed the Million Man March. But the unions that were black came in and we coordinated with them. And so it was because of Ben Chavis and knowing about the Deacons and he had been an activist, had been spent 3 months in jail, the seven, I forgot the group that they was with. And so it was because of him that I got the speech at the Million Man March. Right. And I remember when the Million Man March was started, and then we had a table at the Black Caucus thing, and it seemed that it was moving slow. We had been working on this, and we had banners and flyers. And then it seemed like about 2 weeks before the march, it just shifted. We were down on Kennedy Street was our office. And at the Phi Beta Kappa Sigma fraternity house. And all of a sudden the phones just started to ring and more people came in and we started like mushrooming. And by the time that 3 or 4 days before the march, we had people from all over the country calling us saying, hi, I'm calling and Mr. So-and-so who's on the city council in Biloxi, Mississippi is going to be at the march and he want to be on the program. I mean, we had everybody who was black, who held any position to one degree, wanted to be on the program. Of course, there were some black groups who did not endorse the march. Right. But the majority, and didn't matter because this was a march about black men.
Right.
And nothing was going to stop. And one of the things that I found so exciting was that people in DC And Maryland and Virginia, the women were so happy. They were so proud. I got my nephew coming. He's bringing 5 of his friends for the Million Man March, and they're going to stay with me. I mean, it was just like their way of being supportive. One of the interesting things about this march, as compared to the March on Washington, that the March on Washington brought people from all over the country. The least amount of people who showed up for the march was Washington, D.C., because they had told us it was going to be a riot.
Right.
So very, very, very few people. I would venture to say of the 250,000 people that showed up for the March on Washington, I would gather less than 5,000 people went from D.C.
Yeah. So it was a great march, and we're excited, and I'm thankful that you had an opportunity to be a part of that. But then you move on, and you founded the D.C. Black History Celebration Committee. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I worked at the Martin Luther King Library, and I started off in the bookmobile, where we took books to prisoners, Lorton and the youth centers. And when that program was switching, I had an interest. When I went to Syracuse, my major was political science, and then I studied, my graduate work was in African American studies and higher education. So when I got to the library, and when they moved me out of that program, and so when I got in Black Studies, I started to coordinate Black history programs in Black Studies and at the Martin Luther King Library. Eventually, we coordinated, and I coordinated for the public library all the Black history programs in the library system. So the branches, the main library, we were all synchronizing who was doing what. We knew who was giving what programs. So at some point, I was involved in the first celebration of the Martin Luther King birthday. The fight for it, and then when we started to celebrate it. And when we started to celebrate the Martin Luther King birthday citywide, I was involved in 3 or 4 groups with that. And so out of that, I was doing Black history programs at the library. And so I decided that we ought to do citywide Black programs. And so I formed the DC Black History Celebration Committee. And so that not only was I doing it at the library, but I could grow it through churches, through community groups. And there were people who wanted to work. I'd say, I'd like to be on this committee.
Yeah.
And I thought it was important that we celebrate our history. We understand why we are where we are, what got us there, and what we need to do to stay there, and why our history is important, just like everybody's history is important. And one of the things, of course, is that if you don't tell your story, somebody else will tell it. And they won't tell it your way, they'll tell it their way.
Exactly.
And so it becomes important for us to always tell our story. And as an old African proverb says that there was a man who sat on the corner, walked down the road. And he walked down the road and he was trying to find his people. And he saw this old man sitting down the road and he said, "What happened to the people of Guatemala?" And he said, "They forgot their history and they died. They faded away." And so it becomes so significant that if you don't know your history, if you don't know how things happen, then you lose something. You don't have something to stand on. Families who can trace their history have a greater sense of themselves or their family than people who know nothing about their history. I oftentimes say that the importance of the African American Civil War Museum with my good friend Frank Smith, and I've been with them since its founding, is that if it had not been for the Civil War Museum, there could be no Black African American Museum of History and Culture. That in the Civil War Museum, you trace the Civil War, you trace your history from slavery to the Civil War. That if we didn't have that, then we couldn't have the history today that we have. and the importance of what people did and how they struggled and believed that we were going to get freedom. And that they believed, slaves believed, that one day, and the concept was not, I'm going to be free. It was, Lord, free my children, make my children, my grandchildren have a better life. It was not for me. It was not for you. But they prayed for their great-great-children could come. There's a story once that says this woman was a slave woman, and she bore 12 children. And every one she bore, the master took and sold when they got a certain age. And they sold them at 4 or 5 years old. And her last one she bore when he was 2 years old. She took him to the wood pile, and she took her axe and she chopped his wrist, his ankle off. And then she ran to the house and she said, Missy, come help me. My son can cut his ankle. And so she laid the mistress of the house of the plantation came down, and they wrapped him, and then the master came out. He said, he ain't no good to me now, you can have him, but I ain't gonna feed him. You're gonna have to feed him, you're gonna have to take care of him, but he ain't no good to me now. And that's the essence of the fight for freedom and what it meant to mothers to continue to hope for, and fathers to hope that it wasn't about me being free. It was about for generations. And the incredible thing for me is that they had such a faith and a belief that where they came from and where they believed we could go, it's just absolutely almost incomprehensible. Except that there's proof. The proof that we can see from whence we came.
And I just think that's a perfect place to end, because it's so important and critical that we tell our story, and that we tell our story, that we don't allow someone else to tell our story, but we tell our story with all its nuances, that we tell our story with all the terror, that we tell our story with the foundation of faith that our ancestors stood on and we continue to stand on today. To God be the glory. I pray that you've been inspired. I pray that you've been informed, and I know that you've been transformed. And I just want to say thank you.
Well, I am absolutely delighted to do this. And one of my last comments is that I am believing, and I did a thing called Black Fathers Matter. And the reason I did that was that they were doing the takeovers in the Black Plaza, and Black Lives Matter had come about. And somebody asked me if I was going down to do all that, and I said, well, you know, I'm 70-some years old and I can't throw a brick and run. But something said to me, and I've always believed that somehow, initially, at some point, black men began to get the short end of the stick. Some of the things that black women could get away with, black men could never do, that had been killed for. I remember being in a store in the A&P with my mother, and she was in line, and a white woman came and got in front of her with her basket. My mother took that basket and pushed it, and got back and said, you get behind me, I was in line. Now, if a black man had done that, he'd have been killed. But one of the things that this Black Fathers Matter project does, that it celebrates black men. And it celebrates black men from all kinds of, all their lifestyles. And one of the things about black men that I am so proud of back is that black men are proud to be black men. You can see a black man, he can be an alcoholic, he can be a drunk. You can see a black man who is working, he can be another one who's homeless, one who's successful. But when they say that they're a black man, they all feel proud. And to celebrate black men. And we do this black motorcade and have all these signs, just amazing the response we get when we go through the black community. They say, oh, ain't nobody ever said a lot of good things about you. Thank you, brother. Can I get one of them Black Father Matter signs? How many can you give me? You know, and they're proud. One guy said, you don't know what this means to us, to celebrate black men. And so I think it's so important that through this struggle, that black men, that we not forget the struggle that black men have gone through. Because basically, black men fought the Civil War, not black women. Sometimes they would join in and do things, but the Civil War was fought by black men, you know, along with white men. But we never would have won the Civil War had it not been for black men. And so we need to always remember that sometimes the system has pointed itself more against black men. They work harder against black men to keep us down than they do black women. And so for that reason, I am so proud of the struggle, the determination. Even when black men don't have anything, they got pride.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Generationally speaking, you heard it from him. God bless.
God bless.
Psalms 86. Hear me, Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy. Guard my life, for I am faithful to you. Save your servant who trusts in you. You are my God. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I have called to you all day long. Bring joy to your servant, Lord, for I put my trust in you. You, Lord, are forgiving and good, abounding in love. To all who call to you, hear my prayer, Lord. Listen to my cry for mercy. When I am in distress, I call to you because you answer me. Among the gods, there is none like you. Lord, no deeds can compare with yours. All the nations you have made will come and worship before you. Lord, they will bring glory to your name, for you are great and do marvelous deeds. You alone are God. Teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness. Give me an undivided heart, that I might fear your name. I will praise you, Lord, my God, with all my heart. I will glorify your name forever. For great is your love toward me. You have delivered me from the depths, from the realm of the dead. Arrogant foes are attacking me, O God. Ruthless people are trying to kill me. They have no regard for you. But you, Lord, are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Turn to me and have mercy on me. Show your strength in behalf of your servant. Save me because I serve you, just as my mother did. Give me a sign of your goodness, that my enemies may see it and be put to shame. For you, Lord, have helped me and comforted me.
Psalms 46. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth do change, and though the mountains be shaken into the heart of the seas, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains tremble with swelling thereof. There is a river, the streams whereof make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her, and that right early. The nations raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. Jehovah of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come, behold the works of Jehovah, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow, and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariots in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Jehovah of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge.
New International Version, Psalm 91. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. If you say, "The Lord is my refuge," and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you. No disaster will come near your tent. For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent. Because He loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation.
Romans 8:25 through 39, the New International Version. But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. And He who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for God's people in accordance with the will of God. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. For those God foreknew, He also predestined, and to be conformed in the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And those He predestined, He also called. Those He called, He also justified. Those He justified, He also glorified. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare His own Son, but gave Him up for us all, how will He not also, along with Him, graciously give us all things? Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? Is it God who justifies? Who then is the one who condemns? No one. Jesus Christ, who died, more than that, who was raised to life, is at the right hand of God, and is also interceding for us. Who shall separate us from the love of God? Shall trouble or hardship, or persecution or famine, or nakedness or danger or sword? As it is written, for your sake we face death all day long. we are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all things we are more than conquerors through him who loves us. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creations will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus, our Lord.
Psalms 23, a song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anointed my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Psalms 27 in its entirety. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this I will be confident. One thing I have desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle he shall hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. And now shall mine head be lifted up above mine enemies around about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me and answer me. When thou sayest, seek ye my face, my heart said unto thee, thy face, Lord, will I seek. Hide not thy face far from me. Put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help. Leave me not, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Teach me thy way.